When my sister was viciously tasered by our overzealous HOA president over an unauthorized guest parking issue. None of us suspected she was a senior partner at the city's most formidable law firm, or that we'd unravel a sprawling real estate conspiracy that would topple the entire corrupt board in handcuffs. What would you do if your neighborhood tyrants picked a fight with the wrong family? Let me know in the comments where you're reading from. Heat surged to my cheeks as I glared at the neon yellow notice slapped on my front door. Violation. Approved guest parking, $50 fine. I ripped it off just as my sister, Lauren, pulled into the driveway. She'd only been crashing with me for 2 weeks while her new place was being painted. "You won't believe this," I said, waving the paper. "The HOA's already nitpicking us." Lauren chuckled, brushing it off. "Typical power trip. I'll park on the street from now on." I watched her head inside, briefcase swinging, unfazed as always. That was Lauren, cool as ice under pressure. But something about this felt off. I'd lived in Oakwood Heights for 3 years without a peep, and now this? The next morning, I caught Linda Carter, our HOA president, snapping photos of my yard from the sidewalk. She didn't even bother hiding it, just aimed her phone at my house like she owned it. When she saw me peering through the window, she flashed a smug wave. "That woman's control-obsessed," my neighbor Jack told me later. "Since she took over 6 months ago, violations are up 300%. My kid got fined for leaving his skateboard in our driveway overnight." That night, as Lauren and I cooked dinner, the doorbell chimed. There stood Linda with Greg Simmons, the HOA treasurer, both decked out in navy blazers with gold Oakwood Heights pins. "We need to address your mounting violations," Linda said, skipping pleasantries. Her voice dripped with fake sweetness, but her eyes were frigid. "Mounting violations?" I shot back, keeping my tone civil. "It was one parking notice." Greg whipped out a tablet and rattled off. "Unapproved guest parking, $50. Improper trash bin placement, $75. Unapproved vehicle in driveway, $100. Unauthorized wind chimes, $75. "Wind chimes," I stammered. "I've had those for 2 years." Linda's smile tightened. Page 47 of the updated guidelines. Bylaw against noise-making decorations passed last month. "You read the new manual, right?" I gritted my teeth. "This is absurd. My bins are exactly where they've always been." "They must be 6 inches from the house," Greg said primly. "Yours are 8. I measured myself. Lauren stepped up behind me. "Can I assist with something?" Linda's eyes narrowed. "And you are?" "Her sister, not a guest," Lauren replied smoothly. "I'm staying temporarily while my house is renovated." "Any stay over 10 days requires board approval," Linda snapped. "That's another $150 fine." My chest tightened. This is spiraling out of control. "Rules are rules," Greg said with a shrug. "Payments due in 48 hours, Linda added, handing me a $450 bill. "After that, it doubles. And your sister's car needs to be off the property by tomorrow." As they strutted off, I caught Linda whispering to Greg, both laughing as they glanced back at my house. "Don't let them rattle you," Lauren said, squeezing my shoulder. "This petty nonsense is more common than you'd think." But I couldn't sleep that night. Why was Linda suddenly targeting me? At 2 a.m., a car door slammed. Peeking out, I saw Greg sticking something on my mailbox. I darted outside after he left and found another notice. Unapproved exterior lighting, $100. My porch light, the same one I'd had since moving in. The next day, 3 neighbors got similar citations. Mary across the street was fined for non-conforming flower pot colors. Old Mr. Peterson, 2 doors down, got a $200 penalty for his grandson's tricycle being visible. "Something's fishy," Mary said at the mailboxes. Linda's husband works for Summit Realty Group. They've been scooping up houses in neighborhoods like ours. That afternoon, I watched Linda and Greg patrol the street, pointing at homes and scribbling notes. When they hit my driveway, Linda measured from my mailbox to the street with a tape, grinning as she jotted something down. I hit the county property record site while Lauren was at work. My stomach sank. 6 homes in our neighborhood had sold in the past 3 months, all to shell companies tied to Summit Realty. When Lauren got home, I showed her. "Classic predatory playbook," she said, scanning my findings. "Set impossible rules, harass homeowners with fines, push them to sell." "What do we do?" I asked. "Document everything," she replied, firing up her laptop. Forward me every notice, dates, times, amounts. As she worked, I saw a new edge in her eyes. Lauren, I said cautiously, what exactly do you do at your firm? She smirked. Property law and predatory housing practices. But let's keep that between us for now. The next morning, my yard was a sea of orange violation flags. Grass too tall, unapproved plant species, decorative rock violation. From her window across the street, Linda sipped coffee, watching me with a widening grin. She didn't see Lauren photographing each flag, her phone geotagging every shot, or Jack's security camera catching it all from his porch. This means war, I muttered. I froze when I turned onto my street. A tow truck loomed over Lauren's car, lights flashing, as two uniformed guys hooked it up. Linda stood nearby, arms crossed, smug as ever. Stop, I yelled, sprinting over. What are you doing? That car's on a public street. The driver shifted awkwardly. Ma'am, we've got HOA authorization to remove it. The HOA has no power over public streets. I snapped, pulling out my phone. I'm calling the cops. Linda stepped forward, heels clicking. Actually, we do. This stretch was deeded to the association in the original plan, page 118 of the covenants. She handed me a stamped paper. Plus, your sister's an unauthorized resident. Fines are now $650, due now. My hands trembled as the truck hauled Lauren's car away. A boot notice and another violation, unsightly yard decorations, violation flags, $200, waited on my door. Inside, I called Lauren. They towed your car. I know, she said calmly. My tracking app pinged me. Don't stress. I've called our police contact. Police contact? Lauren, what's going on? I'll explain tonight. For now, photograph every document they've given you. Leave the flags, they're evidence. 2 hours later, Jack and Mary showed up with their own notices. $300 for excessive garden gnomes, Mary had one, and $250 for Jack's improperly angled flagpole. Soon, 5 more neighbors arrived with tales of absurdity. Margaret's 12-year-old bird feeder fined $250, Mr. Peterson's handicap ramp slated for removal. Single mom Carla sobbing over a lien threat for her kids' bikes. They're hitting people who can't fight back, Jack noted. Elderly folks, single parents, overworked families. Then Lauren walked in with a police officer. This is Officer Daniels, she announced. He's here to take statements about the illegal towing and harassment. Daniels nodded. We've had multiple complaints about this HOA lately. I'd like to hear from all of you. As neighbors spilled their stories, Lauren hooked her laptop to my TV. While Officer Daniels logs your accounts, here's what I've found, she said, pulling up a spreadsheet. In 14 days, 93 violations issued, versus 37 all last year. A map followed, red dots marking heavily fined homes next to yellow dots for recent sales. They're forcing a domino effect, she explained. Drive one owner out, then target their neighbors. Why? Margaret asked. Lauren flashed property records. 7 homes sold to Summit Realty shell companies. They're buying up blocks. Daniels looked up. Summit's under investigation in 3 counties for this exact scheme. The doorbell rang. Greg stood there with 2 Summit security guys. We're collecting your fines, he bellowed, plus a $500 penalty for running a business from home. Business. I echoed. Unauthorized meetings, he said, gesturing at the parked cars. Residential use only. Daniels stepped forward. Problem here. Greg faltered. Private HOA matter. Not anymore, Daniels replied. I'm investigating harassment and possible fraud. Your name, please. Greg retreated. I'll consult our attorney. Good idea, Lauren said, stepping up. Tell them Carter Va Pierce will file a records request tomorrow. 5 years of HOA financials, minutes, and violations. Greg paled. Carter Va Pierce. Lauren handed him her card. Lauren Hayes, Senior Partner, Property Rights Division. I specialize in HOA overreach and developer fraud. As Greg fled, a news van rolled up. I'm Lisa Tran from Channel 5, the reporter called. We got a tip about HOA harassment here. Across the street, Linda emerged, phone to ear, fuming. What have you done? I whispered to Lauren. Given them a real problem, she grinned. Board meetings tomorrow night. We'll be there. After everyone left, Lauren laid out her plan over dinner. We document everything for the Homeowners Rights Commission. They can freeze the HOA during an investigation. A crash outside cut her off. My mailbox lay toppled, sell or else spray painted on my driveway. Lauren snapped photos as I called Daniels. From her window, Linda filmed us, her phone glowing in the dark. At 6:03 a.m., pounding on my door yanked me awake. Through the peephole, I saw Linda, Greg, 2 board members, and 2 Summit security guards. Open up. HOA business. Linda barked. My hands shook as I unlocked it. Linda shoved past me. We've got proof of an unauthorized resident and a legal meeting. Fines are $1,500, due today. What are you talking about? I mumbled, groggy. You can't barge in. Greg smirked. Section 17B, Emergency Access for Rule Breaking. A guard, tall and stern, rested his hand near his taser. We need the unauthorized occupant now. My sister's asleep, I protested. Come back later with notice. Wake her, or it's $500 more for obstruction, Linda sneered. I called Lauren. She descended in pajamas, hair tousled. The shorter guard blocked the stairs. Are you the unapproved resident? I'm visiting, Lauren said evenly. You've no right to question me here. Section 4C, guests can't stay over 5 nights without approval, Greg said, waving his tablet. It's been 14. Fines are $2,500, or eviction starts Monday. Lauren squared up. Show me your authorization and these guards' credentials. Linda bristled. We don't answer to you. I'm asking as an attorney, Lauren clarified. You've entered a private home at dawn with armed men. Prove your legal basis. The tall guard grabbed her arm. Step back, ma'am. Don't touch me. Lauren recoiled. Then the other guard fired his taser. The crackling sound and her scream fused as she crumpled, convulsing. I dropped beside her, sobbing. What have you done? Call 911. Linda loomed over us. This is what happens when you defy community standards. I dialed 911, shaking. My sister's been tasered by HOA security. We need help. The guards shifted nervously as Greg edged toward the door. She was threatening. Nobody move. I warned. Police will handle this. Outside, my neighbor Kelly filmed it all through her window, nodding to confirm she'd caught it. Linda didn't know Lauren was a senior partner at Carter Va Pierce, the firm that toppled West Ridge's corrupt council last year. As I held Lauren's hand through my tears, her eyes gleamed with resolve. A storm was brewing. She's lucky it didn't trigger cardiac issues, the ER doctor said, pointing to red marks on Lauren's chest. She lay pale but alert as nurses worked. We'll keep her 24 hours, but she'll recover. I gripped her hand, crying. The police took statements. They're claiming you threatened them. Lauren winced, sitting up. Typical deflection. Did they arrest the guard? He's in custody. Linda and Greg left in cop cars too. My phone buzzed with neighbors' texts. Mrs. Carter fined $700 for tulips. The Garcias Halloween lights trashed for being purple. Print every message, Lauren said. We need a pattern. Kelly called, on speaker. I sent the video to the police and my cousin at County Records. She dug up the board members' property deeds. Linda and Greg don't own their homes. Summit Realty does. Lauren's eyes widened. Pull up their site. I did, gasping at a luxury condo plan, over our neighborhood. They're targeting us, Kelly said. Your house is at their main entrance. An officer guarded Lauren's room, citing patient safety. Her phone pinged. Edward Pierce, her firm's head. He's taking our case personally, she said, smiling faintly. Called the DA himself. My jaw dropped. The DA? Old law school buddy, she explained. We busted West Ridge's real estate scam together. She gripped my hand. Tell everyone to document everything. And don't pay a dime more in fines. A news alert hit. HOA security tasers homeowner's sister in dawn raid. Sarah's video had leaked. It's starting, Lauren whispered. That night, she worked from her hospital bed as neighbors sent more horror stories. At midnight, Kelly texted, big meeting at Linda's, Summit SUVs in driveway. They're panicking, Lauren said. Good. The next morning, my front door was shattered, papers strewn, furniture flipped. A note stabbed to the wall read, drop it or else. Lauren studied the wreckage. Same boot prints as the guards. A Valley security card lay on the floor. Police attitude shifted when Lauren name-dropped Carter Va Pierce. We've got you on 4 cameras, Linda. a detective said later. Breaking and entering's a felony. A $115,000 lien notice arrived from the HOA, with 3 neighbors getting similar threats. Retaliation proof, Lauren said, stacking it with evidence. Neighbors flooded my house with tales, Mrs. Kim fined for her garden, the Wilsons ramp targeted, single dad Carlos harassed over grass height. Why now? Lauren mused, studying county maps. Kelly burst in. My cousin found it. Linda's house is Summit-owned. They've bought 6 homes here. Lauren connected the dots on her laptop. Summit paid Linda and Greg to force sales with fake violations. That night, 50 furious neighbors met at the community center. Lauren projected evidence. Bank statements showing HOA fees funneled to Summit shells. They've broken countless laws, she said. Old Mr. Carter stood. They demanded $5,000 for my birdbath or I'd lose my home. Lauren vowed, not anymore. My firm's filing a class action tomorrow. Outside, every car had violation notices. Linda glared from across the street. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Lauren replied, flashing her phone. Court just froze your accounts. A news van rolled up. We got your evidence, the reporter said. Linda bolted as cameras turned. At 3 a.m., tires screeched. Flames rose from Linda's backyard, file folders burning. She's torching evidence, Lauren said, snapping photos. A singed Summit HOA contract fluttered out. Firefighters and police swarmed in. This is a crime scene now, Detective Lopez said, bagging scraps. By dawn, neighbors buzzed. Linda had fled with suitcases. A 9 a.m. alert showed her arrested at the airport, headed for Mexico. Greg turned himself in, spilling everything. Summit planted Linda 3 years ago, paying her 10% per cheap buy. 17 homeowners had sold at losses for Summit's condo tower. They stole $300,000 from our HOA fund, Lauren revealed. The guard who tasered her was nabbed next, unlicensed. A week later, a judge froze the HOA, appointing a receiver. Summit's CEO and 2 city officials were indicted, their stock crashing. Secret Cayman accounts, Lauren said. That's where our fees went. 6 weeks later, our $4.8 million class action win forced Summit to refund fines, lift liens, and sell back 17 homes. Worth the taser? Lauren teased as we watched the news. 2 months on, we elected a new HOA board, Mrs. Kim, Carlos, Kelly, using Lauren's transparent bylaws. That night, Linda's old house became a community garden. Something good will grow here, Mr. Carter said, planting a seedling. The FBI later tapped Lauren to probe similar scams nationwide. At our first block party, kids played on new equipment, adults grilled, and no violation notices loomed. Lauren laughed, pointing to my door. Her biggest mistake wasn't tasering me. It was thinking she could break us. As neighbors danced under string lights, I realized bullies forge strength, and heroes can hide at your dinner table.